I saw some people making money on YouTube, and I wanted to go shoot guns and get the ammo paid for by a YouTube video.
Matt Carriker did not lose Demolition Ranch. He outgrew it. For 14 years, he turned a Texas shooting range into one of the biggest firearm channels on YouTube, built businesses around it, survived algorithm changes, and watched millions of fans become the Demolitia. Then, after one national tragedy, one brutal platform shift, and one quiet conversation with his wife, he made the decision nobody expected. The man famous for destroying everything finally chose not to destroy his own life. The Texas vet who was never supposed to become a YouTube giant. Before Demolition Ranch became a YouTube empire, Matt Carriker was simply a kid from the Texas Hill Country who grew up around animals, family, and firearms. He was born in 1986 and came from Bern, Texas, a town northwest of San Antonio where the pace of life looked nothing like the internet machine he would later help define. His father, Dr. Lee Carriker, worked as a veterinarian, and that world shaped Matt early. He saw medicine not as a glamorous profession, but as a practical one. Long days, injured animals, worried owners, and the steady discipline of showing up when something needed help. That is important, because most people who only know Demolition Ranch miss the other half of Matt's identity. The channel made him famous for destruction, but his actual career was built around repair. He attended Texas A&M's College of Veterinary Medicine and Biomedical Sciences and trained to become a licensed veterinarian. On one side of his life, he was studying anatomy, surgery, diagnosis, and animal care. On the other side, he was filming experiments with firearms, old equipment, unusual targets, and the kind of curiosity that begins with one simple question: what happens if we try this? That contrast is the real foundation of his story. Matt was never only a gun YouTuber, he was a veterinarian who happened to understand YouTube before most professionals realized what the platform could become. He did not enter the space with a polished media strategy. He started with a camera, a firearm, a sense of humor, and the kind of normal Texas personality that made viewers feel like they were hanging out with someone they already knew. That normalcy became the secret ingredient. Demolition Ranch did not feel like a political lecture, a tactical training channel, or a polished television show. It felt like a friend, testing the limits of absurd ideas in the safest, funniest way he could package for the internet. The channel that almost cost him his degree. In 2011, while still working toward his veterinary future, Matt launched Demolition Ranch. One of the early videos, famously built around shooting a computer monitor with a SPAS-12, captured the spirit of the channel before the audience fully existed. It was simple, chaotic, and oddly charming. There was no obvious guarantee that it would become a career. YouTube was still younger, creator businesses were less developed, and firearm content had not yet become the complicated algorithmic category it would later become. But the channel began growing, and growth creates pressure. Uploading was no longer just something Matt could do casually between classes. People were watching. They wanted more. The experiments had to get bigger. The edits had to improve, and the schedule started competing with the future he had spent years building. According to the origin story repeated by fans, Matt nearly let the channel pull him off track. That is when he made one of the most revealing decisions of his life. He stopped filming for a period and focused on finishing veterinary school. That choice matters because it shows Matt's priorities before fame fully took over. He could have chased the internet wave and hoped it kept rising. Instead, he finished the thing that mattered first. He graduated, became Dr. Matt Carriker, returned to veterinary work, and only then reopened the door to Demolition Ranch. That decision shaped everything that followed. Unlike many creators who build fame before they build a foundation, Matt had a real profession underneath the platform. If YouTube disappeared, he was not empty-handed. He had a clinic, a skill, and a life away from the camera. How Demolition Ranch became GunTube's biggest personality. As Demolition Ranch grew, Matt found the exact tone that made the channel explode. He made firearm content feel less intimidating and more entertaining without turning it into traditional politics. The formula was not complicated from the outside. Unusual tests, huge reactions, expensive toys, wild setups, and the kind of curiosity viewers could understand instantly. But the reason it worked for so long was that Matt knew how to make destruction feel friendly. He was not trying to scare people. He was trying to make them laugh, ask questions, and come back for the next ridiculous experiment. By the mid-2010s, Demolition Ranch had become one of the defining channels of GunTube, the loose online ecosystem of firearm creators, reviewers, collectors, builders, and experimenters. What separated Matt from many competitors was that he avoided becoming too narrow. He was knowledgeable, but not dry. He liked firearms, but his whole personality was not built around being the most tactical person in the room. He could be goofy, self-aware, and surprisingly wholesome for someone whose channel revolved around blowing up objects and pushing equipment to ridiculous limits. That balance made him commercially powerful. Viewers who might never watch a technical firearm review could still enjoy a Demolition Ranch video because the emotional hook was curiosity, not instruction. What happens to this object? Can this material stop that impact? How far can this idea go before it becomes absurd? Matt's genius was turning those questions into a repeatable format. He made the ranch feel like a playground, and for years, millions of viewers kept showing up to see what would be destroyed next. The empire behind the explosions. The smartest part of the example script was that it did not treat Demolition Ranch as just one channel. It showed how Matt built an entire ecosystem. That is where the story becomes much more impressive. Demolition Ranch was the loudest piece, but it was not the only piece. There was Off the Ranch, where fans saw Matt's family, projects, homes, business updates, and a more personal version of his life. There was Vet Ranch, the channel that used veterinary work to help animals that might otherwise have been written off. There was Bunker Branding, the merch and screen printing operation that grew far beyond simple channel shirts. And later, there was the Desperado Resort, the 350-acre property in Borneo that became one of his biggest real-world projects. This is the part casual viewers often miss. Matt was not just uploading videos. He was building infrastructure. A YouTube channel can be one person with a camera, but a creator empire becomes staff, inventory, customer service, brand deals, warehouses, real estate, taxes, scheduling, legal pressure, and constant expectation. Every new success becomes another thing that needs maintenance. Every fan who buys a shirt becomes part of a business. Every side project becomes a demand on time. That is why the ending makes more sense when you see the full scale of what he built. Demolition Ranch was fun to watch, but running it for more than a decade was not just fun. It was a machine. Machines need feeding. Bigger videos, bigger costs, bigger risk, bigger expectations. The same energy that made Matt successful also made the life harder to sustain. By the time he stepped away, he was not walking away from a hobby. He was stepping away from an entertainment infrastructure that had become bigger than the original dream. Vet Ranch revealed the real Matt. Vet Ranch may be the most important part of the whole story because it showed what Matt cared about when the camera was not focused on spectacle. Launched in 2014, Vet Ranch used YouTube revenue and donations to fund medical treatment for animals from shelters, including work connected to San Antonio Pets Alive. The idea was simple, but powerful. Show the rescue, show the procedure, show the recovery, and let the video help pay for the next animal. It was YouTube turned into a medical funding loop. That changed how people understood Matt. Demolition Ranch was loud, funny, and destructive. Vet Ranch was quiet, emotional, and restorative. On one channel, Matt broke things for entertainment. On the other, he repaired animals for survival. That contrast made his public image more durable because viewers could see that the chaos was not the whole person. Dr. Matt was still there. The kid who grew up watching his father care for animals was still there. The veterinary degree was not just a backup plan. It remained part of his identity. This becomes especially important after his retirement announcement because Vet Ranch did not carry the same emotional ending as Demolition Ranch. While the firearm channel became the symbol of what he was leaving behind, the veterinary work represented what could continue. That gives the story its cleanest twist. Matt did not simply quit. He chose which parts of his life deserved to keep getting his energy. The loudest project ended. The healing project remained. The loss that changed the clock. In March 2020, Matt's brother, Mark Carriker, died of cancer. That fact is often mentioned briefly, but it deserves more weight because grief changes the way time feels. Losing a sibling is not like losing an acquaintance, a colleague, or a public figure. A sibling knows the version of you that existed before the audience, before the money, before the brand, before the cameras. When someone like that is gone, the future can suddenly feel shorter and more fragile. Matt did not need to say that Mark's death completely changed his relationship with content for viewers to sense that something shifted over time. The family side of his life became more meaningful. His wife Meredith and their children, Addie, Annie, and Lincoln, were not just background names. They were the people he was building all of this around. As the years moved on, the question became less about whether Demolition Ranch could keep growing and more about what growth was costing him. This is the new insight the updated version should push. Matt's retirement was not just a business decision, it was a time decision. The death of his brother, the aging of his children, and the pressure of maintaining multiple businesses all pointed toward the same realization. Fame can multiply money, options, and influence, but it cannot give back the years when your children still live at home. Once those years pass, they do not rerun like old videos. The platform started changing under his feet. By 2024, firearm creators on YouTube were facing a very different platform than the one Matt had joined in 2011. YouTube's rules around gun content had tightened over the years, and in June 2024, the platform updated its firearm policy again, including age restrictions on certain real firearm use content involving automatic firearms, homemade firearms, high-capacity magazines, and accessories such as suppressors. For a creator whose back catalog and audience were built around firearm experimentation, age restriction is not a minor label. It changes reach, recommendations, monetization, and discoverability. This is one of the practical reasons the story changed. Demolition Ranch's content was never easy to categorize in a platform safety environment. It was entertainment, but it involved real firearms. It was often comedic, but advertisers and algorithms do not always understand context. A human viewer might know the difference between reckless instruction and controlled entertainment. A platform policy has to apply rules at scale, across millions of uploads, in a climate where gun content is politically sensitive and heavily scrutinized. For Matt, this meant the channel was facing a future where growth might become harder, no matter how loyal the audience remained. The Demolitia could still watch, but reaching new viewers would be tougher. The platform that had helped build the empire was no longer the same platform. That does not mean YouTube alone killed Demolition Ranch. but it added pressure at exactly the wrong time. When a creator is already questioning whether the grind is worth it, a major policy shift can make the answer arrive faster. The moment the brand was dragged into national tragedy, then came July 2024. At a campaign rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, Thomas Matthew Crooks attempted to assassinate Donald Trump. Images from the scene circulated worldwide, and viewers noticed something Matt Carriker could never have wanted attached to his name. Crooks was wearing Demolition Ranch merchandise. There was no evidence that Matt knew him, encouraged him, or had any connection beyond the shirt. But in the internet age, association does not need logic to become a crisis. A brand can be pulled into a national tragedy in seconds. Matt responded publicly and expressed shock and confusion. He condemned hate and violence and made clear that he did not know Crooks. But there is no perfect response to that kind of moment. If he stayed silent, people would accuse him of avoiding responsibility. If he spoke, the story would grow larger. If he defended his community, critics could twist it. If he apologized too much, fans might feel he was accepting blame for something he did not do. It was a no-win situation. This may have been the emotional breaking point, not because Matt did anything wrong, but because it showed how little control a creator actually has over the meaning of their own brand. You can build a community for more than a decade. You can avoid politics. You can try to keep the tone fun, safe, and non-hateful. Then one stranger wears your shirt during a violent act, and suddenly your name is in headlines you never wanted. That is the nightmare side of creator culture. Your logo can travel farther than your intentions. The family conversation that mattered most. After the policy pressure and the national news shock, the final reason was quieter. Matt and Meredith looked at their family and realized their children would not be home forever. That sentence is simple, but it carries the whole story. Addie, Annie, and Lincoln were growing up. The window was closing. Matt had already spent years giving enormous pieces of his time to YouTube, businesses, ranch projects, filming, editing, travel, and the constant demand to create something bigger than the last upload. That is why his retirement announcement landed differently from a normal creator burnout story. It did not sound like defeat. It sounded like a man choosing the part of his life that could not be monetized. The question was no longer whether Demolition Ranch could keep succeeding. It clearly could. The question was whether succeeding more was worth missing more. At some point, another 1 million views does not compete with another year of your kids wanting you around. The example script captured this well, but the updated version should make it even clearer. Matt did not walk away because the channel failed. He walked away because it worked. It worked so well that it created a life too big to keep carrying without sacrifice. The surprising thing about Demolition Ranch is not that it ended. The surprising thing is that Matt recognized the cost before the machine took everything it could. Selling the ranch was the real symbol. When Matt posted, "I'm selling the ranch" in January 2025, the title said more than a normal retirement video would have. He was not only stepping back from filming, he was selling the physical world that had become part of the channel's identity. The Desperado Resort, the 350-acre Texas property tied to years of off-the-ranch projects and dreams, went on the market for millions. That made the ending feel real. This was not just, "I need a break." This was a creator dismantling the stage. For longtime fans, the ranch was more than land. It was the backdrop of an era. It represented the creator dream taken to its extreme. Buy land, build businesses, film everything. Bring the audience along. Turn projects into content, and turn content into more projects. But that loop can become endless. The ranch was supposed to be freedom. Eventually, it also became responsibility. Staff, upkeep, guests, renovations, overhead, and constant planning do not disappear just because a video goes viral. Selling it reframed the whole retirement. Matt was not trying to preserve the old version of his life while pretending to slow down. He was actually reducing the weight. That is what made the decision feel serious. Many creators announce a break and return when the numbers call. Matt's move looked more final because he was converting the empire back into time, space, and freedom. The final videos felt like a funeral and a celebration. The final Demolition Ranch videos gave fans the ending they needed. They were loud, ridiculous, full of familiar energy, and built around the kind of spectacle that made the channel famous. But underneath the chaos was a very different emotion. Matt knew it was the last time. The audience knew it too. Every explosion, joke, and familiar face carried the weight of an era ending. Then Off the Ranch gave the softer goodbye. That mattered because Demolition Ranch was the public legend. But Off the Ranch was where viewers felt they knew Matt more personally. The farewell was not just about a channel ending. It was about a relationship between creator and audience changing shape. For some fans, Matt had been part of their routine for more than a decade. They had grown up watching him. They had watched his kids grow. They had seen businesses open, projects begin, problems happen, and wins pile up. When he left, it felt like a friend moving away. That emotional response is one of the reasons the story still works. Demolition Ranch was built on destruction, but its ending revealed how much people had attached to the person behind it. Fans did not just miss the content, they respected the choice. Even people who wanted more videos understood the logic. That is rare. Most creator exits are messy. Matt's exit was bittersweet because it felt honest. What really happened to Demolition Ranch? So what really happened to Demolition Ranch? The cleanest answer is this. 3 different pressures hit at the same time. YouTube's firearm policies made the future of the channel harder. The Trump shooter merchandise incident dragged the brand into a national tragedy it had nothing to do with. And Matt's family life made the cost of continuing feel too high. None of these alone fully explains the ending. Together, they do. But the deeper answer is more personal. Demolition Ranch ended because Matt Carriker reached the rare point where more success was no longer the most valuable outcome. He had already built the biggest version of the thing. More videos would not change what the channel meant. More views would not give him back time with his children. More money would not erase the pressure of being attached to a brand that could be pulled into headlines by someone else's actions. More escalation would only make the machine hungrier. The surprising part is that he chose to stop while people still cared. That is not how the internet usually works. Most creators keep going until the audience leaves. The algorithm buries them, the passion dies, or a scandal forces the exit. Matt left before that. He left with the audience still there, the brand still known, and the legacy still intact. In YouTube terms, that is almost unheard of. What did not end is just as important as what did. Vet Ranch remained the clearest sign of what Matt still wanted to keep alive. The veterinary work, the rescue stories, the animals getting a second chance. That side of his world did not need the same escalation as Demolition Ranch. It did not have to become louder every year. It did not have to fight the same platform battles in the same way. It connected back to the profession he trained for and the values he grew up around. Matt also did not vanish completely as a person. He still exists outside the Demolition Ranch upload cycle, still connected to family, business, veterinary work, and his audience in more limited ways. But the old pace is gone. The expectation that the ranch had to keep feeding the internet is gone. The guns went quiet, not because the channel failed, but because the man behind it finally decided that silence was worth more than another upload. So, what do you think? Did Matt make the right decision by walking away from Demolition Ranch while it was still massive, or should he have kept the channel alive in a smaller way? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more stories about what really happened behind the biggest names on YouTube, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you do not miss the next one.